Have you ever noticed how the wellness and longevity industry right now feels a bit like a high-tech casino? People are throwing down thousands of dollars on exotic peptides, aggressive fasting protocols, and intense cold plunges, just spinning the roulette wheel and hoping to hit the biological jackpot.
It is wild to watch. They are practically throwing darts in the dark. It is the equivalent of buying premium, high-octane racing fuel for a car that actually just has a clogged fuel filter and needs an oil change. That is exactly the trap the OXYZEN framework is trying to dismantle with a very simple philosophy: test before you optimize.
Right? And that is exactly what we are unpacking today. Because the reality is, before you even think about biohacking, you need a map. If you do not know your baseline risk, your specific deficiencies, your hidden inflammation, or your metabolic dysfunction, you are not actually optimizing anything. You are just guessing. And guessing with your biology is an expensive and sometimes dangerous game.
Precisely. The core rule here is brilliantly simple, yet almost everyone ignores it. Before starting any protocol, you have to ask, what problem are we actually trying to solve, and which biomarker proves it even exists? If you cannot answer that, put the supplements down.
That question alone could save people a fortune. Let us break down how we actually find those biomarkers. The OXYZEN model maps this out in 3 distinct tiers. Let us start at the ground floor with Tier 1, the essential baseline panel. What exactly are we looking for before we do anything else?
The baseline is all about catching the silent alarms before they become blaring sirens. Think of it as inspecting the foundation of a house before you decide to build a 3rd floor. We are looking at basic blood health, liver and kidney function, and crucially, glucose metabolism. You would be amazed by how many people are doing extreme 4, 8-hour fasts or taking GLP-1 agonists to lose weight, but they have never checked their fasting insulin or their C-peptide levels. They have no idea if they are actually dealing with underlying insulin resistance.
It is the illusion of health. Someone looks relatively fit on the outside, but their internal chemistry is quietly struggling. I see this a lot with cardiovascular risk too. People look at a basic cholesterol panel, see normal numbers, and think they are invincible. But they are completely ignoring the deeper lipid markers.
Spot on. Apolipoprotein B, or ApoB, and lipoprotein A are the perfect examples. ApoB gives you the actual burden of atherogenic particles in your blood, the stuff that actually causes plaque. And LPA is even more fascinating because it is genetically driven. Diet and exercise barely touch it. You could be running marathons, eating a perfect Mediterranean diet, and still have a sky-high cardiovascular risk because of your LPA. The newer cardiovascular prevention guidelines state you should check it at least once in your adult life, but missing it is literally like leaving a ticking time bomb in the basement.
That is a terrifying thought, but at the same time, it is incredibly empowering once you have the data. It shifts the power dynamic entirely from fear to strategy. And speaking of hidden issues, what about the people who just feel constantly drained? They blame it on getting older, but it is actually something entirely fixable in that Tier 1 panel.
Oh, absolutely. Fatigue is the great masquerader. People jump to testosterone replacement or adrenal supplements, but often it is just a thyroid issue or a severe nutrient deficiency. If your free T3 is low or you have thyroid antibodies, your energy, recovery, and even your mood will tank. Or take ferritin, B12, and vitamin D. Deficiencies there perfectly mimic brain fog and low performance. Plus, B12 and folate tie directly into your homocysteine levels, which is a major conversation starter for vascular risk and cognitive health.
So once the foundation is solid, no hidden inflammation, no severe deficiencies, metabolic health is stable. What happens when someone wants to push the envelope? Say they want to start a really aggressive training block, or they are looking into hormone optimization. That brings us to Tier 2, the performance and recovery panel.
Right. And this is where the highly driven Type A personalities usually get themselves into serious trouble. They operate on the assumption that more is always better. More weights, more miles, more stress. But without checking markers like creatine kinase, LDH, or uric acid, they are driving themselves straight into a wall. These tests reveal if your body is actually adapting to the physical stress, or if you are just breaking down muscle tissue and failing to recover.
It is the fine line between functional overreaching and clinical overtraining. You think you are building endurance, but you're actually just digging a hole you cannot climb out of. And it is not just about muscle breakdown, is it? It is about oxygen capacity and hormones.
Exactly. If your ferritin and hemoglobin are in the tank, your VO2 max potential is biologically capped. You will feel like you are suffocating during a workout because you literally lack the cellular machinery to carry the oxygen. And hormonally, it is a complex web. If a man has low energy and assumes he needs testosterone, he needs to look at the whole picture. Total testosterone, free testosterone, SHBG, prolactin. Is it a production issue, a binding issue, or a pituitary signaling problem?
And for women, it is even more dynamic because it has to be interpreted through the lens of the cycle phase. Estradiol, progesterone, LH, FSH. These dictate not just reproductive health, but fatigue, sleep disruption, and how well you recover from a workout.
Exactly. And you also have to look at morning cortisol and DHEAS. If someone is experiencing burnout, poor sleep, and low heart rate variability, throwing intense workouts at them will only crush their endocrine system further. You have to fix the stress recovery balance first.
Which leads perfectly into a really fascinating intersection. We have these snapshots, blood tests, that tell us about our internal chemistry at a specific moment in time. But life is not a snapshot. It is a continuous movie. How does the OXYZEN model bridge the gap between a blood draw you get every 6 months and what is happening in your body on a random Tuesday?
This is where the framework gets genuinely visionary. It combines the static chemistry of blood tests with the dynamic, daily physiology of wearable data, like the OXYZEN ring. Think of the blood tests as the architectural blueprint of a building, and the wearable data as the live security footage.
Oh, I love that analogy. Blueprint versus live footage. Give me a concrete example of how those two data streams talk to each other to give us a better picture.
Let us take metabolic stress. Your blood test gives you your HbA1c and fasting insulin. That is your baseline blueprint. But then your OXYZEN ring tracks your sleep quality and resting heart rate every single night. If your sleep is constantly fragmented, that live footage tells us exactly why your insulin resistance might be creeping up despite you eating a clean diet. Or take cardiovascular risk. You pair the ApoB and HSCRP from your blood work with the heart rate variability and resting heart rate from your ring. You start seeing the immediate, daily impact of your lifestyle choices on your long-term cardiovascular risk.
It creates an immediate feedback loop. You are not just waiting 6 months for another blood draw to see if a lifestyle change or a supplement actually worked. You are watching the physiological echoes of that chemistry every single day. But let me play devil's advocate for a second, especially as we move into Tier 3, longevity and advanced prevention. We are talking about aging biology, advanced cardiovascular scans, and cognitive risk markers like Alzheimer's blood biomarkers. Does this level of hyper-awareness come with a psychological cost? Are we turning ourselves into biological projects rather than human beings?
That is the ultimate philosophical tightrope of biohacking. It is a very real concern. But the goal of Tier 3 is not to induce health anxiety. It is to extend health span, not just lifespan. Yes, looking at a 2025 expert consensus on aging biomarkers or tracking your cognitive risk through homocysteine and HbA1c can feel heavy. But cardiovascular disease and cognitive decline are silent for decades. The tragedy is not finding out you have a risk factor. The tragedy is finding out when it is too late to change the trajectory.
That is a profound shift in perspective. It is moving entirely away from reactive medicine, where you wait for the heart attack or the memory loss to occur, to proactive biological engineering, but it still requires a lot of mental discipline to not obsess over every single data point.
Precisely, and that brings us right back to the golden rule of the entire OXYZEN framework. What problem are we solving? If you are tracking 50 different metrics just for the sake of tracking them, you are going to get lost in the noise. It becomes a neurosis. But if you have a specific goal, say you want to eliminate your afternoon brain fog, and you track your B12, your homocysteine, and your deep sleep patterns to solve that specific problem, then the data becomes a highly effective tool rather than a tyrant.
A tool, not a tyrant. That really strips away the noise of the entire wellness industry. Before you buy the next miracle supplement, before you starve yourself, before you jump into an ice bath, just pause. Look at the dashboard, measure the baseline, find the proof before you pop the pill.
Because at the end of the day, your biology is entirely unique. You cannot download a favorite influencer's protocol and expect it to run perfectly on your own biological hardware. You have to do the work to understand your own code first.
As we wrap up this conversation, I want to leave everyone listening with a thought to chew on. We are living in an unprecedented era where we have access to our own biological source code. We can see the silent inflammation, the hormonal imbalances, and the metabolic stress years before they ever manifest as actual disease.
The technology is already here. The biomarkers are clearly identified. The real question we have to ask ourselves now is whether we have the wisdom to use this data to actually live better, more vibrant lives, rather than just longer, more anxious ones.
Exactly. Are you optimizing your life, or is the optimization consuming your life? Start with the baseline. Let the data guide you, but do not let it blind you to the joy of actually living. Until next time, keep questioning, keep measuring, and most importantly, keep thriving.